Ramanananana. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we take your favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. the pseudo-intellectual soy boy, a.k.a. Comrade Soy Boy, a.k.a. Oswald Cobbled Pothead, a.k.a. I don't know, I can't think of any more.
You know, there's someone in our fantasy football league named Oswald Cobbled Pothead, right?
That's where I got the a.k.a. from in the first place.
Shout out to you, Rich. Good job, man.
There you go. AKA, I already said Alfred Pennyworth for
You did.
for the last Night on Earth ones. Anyway, and I am always excited to see in the co-host chair the one, the only. We scored the exact same thing, so neither of us wins. It's actually a tie.
Hey, what's up?
Not much, dude. Not much. I'm just coming to terms with life in general. But while I'm coming to terms with it, I want to let everybody know that if you're watching us on YouTube, that you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that way you never miss a video. And for the rest of you who are just listening on whatever podcast you're listening to, subscribe to the podcast, get that download on there, even if you don't listen to the episodes as soon as they come out. Leave a review. That would be awesome. And at the very least, just talk to a friend who you know, who you think would appreciate the podcast. Have them listen to a couple episodes. See if you can get them hooked on it. As far as our Patreon subscribers go, Ty, I got some interesting news for you. I want you to take a guess. How many Patreon patrons do you think we have?
Give me 3 guesses. I'm going to start with 100.
Less.
50.
Sorry. Fewer.
50.
Fewer.
1.
Close.
0.
Fewer. It's actually -5. We actually have -5 patrons. I'm gonna have to start.
That's my
people.
bad. That's my bad.
Yeah,
I did some
I'm gonna
shit.
have to start paying people to support the podcast. Oh my god. You know what? Before we do it, I have some interesting stuff I want to tell you real quick. Just friend to friend here. So one of my cousins the other day shared some pro-Marxist stuff on her Instagram, which was amazing. Yes, and by the way, if any of you want to listen to a podcast episode she was on, the podcast is called Oye, the podcast, and it highlights a bunch of actually, I don't really know what the podcast is about. I only listened to the one episode, but from what I understand, it seems to highlight excellence in the Latinx community. My cousin was on the most recent episode. She's an LMSW. She talks all about therapy and mental health, and you know, just growing up as her. You know, similar situation I grew up in. You know, single parent for most of the childhood. First generation American citizen, parent from the Dominican Republic. So yeah, but it was definitely awesome. So Oye the podcast, check it out. But yeah, the other day on Instagram she shared something that said like, you know, if you were to read Marxist theories right now and you're a member of the working class, you would like everything would make sense, which is why we're constantly told to hate Marxism from the moment we're born. Like we're told to hate it all from the beginning. As soon as we come to this country. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and you know what's so funny, dude? She and I like rarely talk about that stuff.
Right.
So we've just both come to the same conclusion. Like,
I mean, I feel like most people should, right? Like, it's almost like evolution, right? There's got to be a point where like there's just I had a coworker who said like he believed that one day everyone would just have an epiphany and they would get it and they would be able to finally break through. So there's always that hope, you know what I mean? There's a reason that the United States of America didn't cover the worker strike in India, right? They didn't want us to know about it. Oh yeah, because if we know about it, then they know that it works. We know it works. Oh yeah, and we will try it here. So you know they got to keep that shit suppressed, but it's out there, and the more of us that realize it and learn about it, the more change we can enact.
my other cousin puts a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff up without knowing it. And because she's actually very similar in her ideology, but like, given the Black and brown community's history with the U.S. government and medical stuff, like I think that there's justifications for being wary of a vaccine that came so fast and everything.
Right, agreed.
But like all the pages she shares these things from, like one of them, I looked at the page and the entire page itself wasn't just anti-COVID vaccination, it was anti-vax all around. And I'm like, yo, I'm pretty sure you shared something from an anti-vax page. She was like, what, really? And she checked, she was like, oh, damn it. And then the other one was like, oh, look at this fake COVID vaccination on TV. They used fake needles and they zoom in with the camera and you see like the liquid dripping down the person's arm instead of in. I don't know. And so I was like, interesting. So I look at it and it's called like Canadian Anon. Like that's the name of the group. They have Anon in the name of their page. And I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, okay, I see some anti-Democrat stuff, but like, whatever. I'm an anti-Democrat too. So maybe, it doesn't mean they're not like, on the level. And then one of them is like a couple of tweets from Cartoon Network. There's a character in Steven Universe who's an intersex character because they're literally a fusion of a boy and a girl. And so, like, it was talking about gender pronouns, and it was like, yeah, I'm comfortable being a they, and you can be comfortable being a he, and you can be a she, blah, blah, blah. And the page that shared the screenshots was like, we're going to shut this shit down soon. And all the comments were like just the most transphobic, evil stuff. And I go to my cousin, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, listen, I don't trust the fucking government either. I don't trust vaccination. But like, you got to understand a lot of these people are fucking like right-wing nut jobs who are big-time conspiracy theorists. I'm pretty sure that's a QAnon page. Like, and it says in their profile how many times they've been banned before. Like, well,
I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? That like people like that you can find some common ground with, right? There's like those Fox News polls that talked about, how like conservatives are mainly in support of like Medicare for all, right? But at the same time, you got to be careful because you get pulled into that, and you're like, "Fuck yeah!" Like we're agreeing, and then like you said, it's like, oh, it's like QAnon and all this wild
you're
shit.
Like, oh, you're one of those.
You're like, never mind. I want to go into a different room. I need to go.
Yeah, it is rough, especially whatever. We'll cover it in a housekeeping episode.
Yeah,
but
we're due for one soon.
But yeah, we are very due for one. It's gonna have to be like a 2-hour long one. We'll see.
We might cry. It'll be emotional. It'll be great.
Yes, good. I'm looking forward to this. But you know what else I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to reviewing one of my favorite Christmas movies. I make sure to watch it every year. And if you know anything about my childhood, then you know that it makes complete sense why this, of all Christmas movies, happens to be one of my favorites. And really, it's just because it's a comic book movie that happens to take place on Christmas, just like Die Hard is an action movie that happens to take place on Christmas.
I would argue it's less a Christmas movie than Die Hard, but yes, it does take place around Christmas. So
I think you're right.
At least it's on Christmas Eve, movie. Right? In Die Hard, I think so. At least they got that going.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But yes, today we are reviewing Batman Returns, the movie that gave me nightmares up until I was 13 years old. I was that afraid of Danny DeVito's Penguin.
I was also terrified of Danny DeVito's Penguin as a child. I don't know if we ever spoke about this, but I was really scared, and I actually had like I think it was an autographed photo of him as the Penguin when I was a kid.
Oh my God, no.
I was fucking terrified of it. So I got rid of it.
Hold on, fucking 5-0 are outside your place.
Yeah, I just heard that.
Boom, no, boom. Bad boys, what you
I was fucking terrified of it, so I think I got rid of it, unfortunately. But yeah, he was really scary.
The same. Wow. So now that you mention it, I actually had a Catwoman poster from Batman Returns that was up above my bed. And well, so yes, it is. So that's the weird part. Wow. Actually, okay. Now that I'm thinking about it, Batman Returns is an integral part of my childhood because I also had the Batman Returns blanket, and on each corner of the blanket they had a character from the movie. One of the corners might have actually been Max Shrek. Like it might have been.
That's terrible.
Go to sleep, little Booch.
The worst fucking character. Actually, no, his son's the worst character.
But yeah, one of the corners was the Penguin, and like it wasn't even like it was just like a penguin that would have been close to the comic books, but I was still afraid of it because of the way he looked in the movie. But also, like, what 5 to 6 year old kid wants a Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman poster on his, like, I don't know.
None of them, but their dads all do.
exactly, like this really like this molded me as a child. I was
It
I was
makes
molded by
sense.
the sexualization of comic book characters. But yes, and I mean, I don't even know if we need to bother doing it, but somewhere through the snow, I'm hearing it in the background from this 1992 movie. Oh
It's
my God,
it's a Christmas spoiler warning.
it is a Christmas spoiler warning. If you haven't seen Batman Returns yet, for
Get
some
on
reason,
it.
yeah, make sure that you watch it before we go into this movie. Um, but yeah, so this this is one of my favorites because it just combines Batman and and Christmas. So I'm able to justify watching it or making my wife watch it. This was supposed to be a kids movie, I feel, and it definitely wasn't.
I mean, it was rated PG-13. So do what you want with
I
that.
mean, yeah, I guess they knew. But you gotta know, like, to a certain extent, like.
But the
you're
90s,
putting
they got away with a
Batman-
lot more shit. You know what I mean? The 80s and 90s, they got away with a lot more stuff in these kind of movies.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's why we're so fucked up today. So
It really is, dude. It is. I was about to reference Star Wars because I just watched it recently, but even then, that was 2008,
oh boy.
or 2007, whatever. So as we get into the movie, Ty, give him the plot.
All right, Batman Returns. Well, Batman deals with a deformed man calling himself the Penguin, wreaking havoc across Gotham with the help of a cruel businessman. A female employee of the latter becomes the Catwoman with her own vendetta.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So, it's accurate. It's
So
exactly what happens.
I just want to start by saying, as a kid, I really enjoyed this movie. As an adult, I really didn't. So,
Tell me more about that. Why? Why? What as an adult is it just realizing that this stuff was still like prevalent, like this stuff was still somehow applicable?
I don't. It was just so over the top, and they were so not faithful to the comics, like in any way, and I don't know. We'll get into it more throughout.
Well, you know what's interesting is this has, and when you think of the time period in which it came out, like the 90s, there was a lot of like sexual thrillers that came out. And somehow they combined a Christmas comic book movie with a sexual thriller because that's exactly what this was. It's your Basic Instinct. It's that one with Bruce Willis and someone else.
Yeah,
There were a
I
lot
know
of
what
those
you're talking
sexual
about.
thrillers. Yeah, you know the one, right?
I feel like at any moment this movie's ready to become a porno. You know, like it was just like the lines, the setup, the way Catwoman acted. I feel like Batman was barely in it. He showed up to punch
Color
some
of Night.
goons sometimes.
Sorry, it was called Color of Night.
I think
It was
I
an
actually
erotic
own it.
mystery. Why would you own? Do you own it on VHS? Tell me more about
No.
your copy of Color of Night, please.
That's the Bruce Willis one, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Bruce
no,
Willis.
because I went through that phase where I was going to own every Bruce Willis film, so I hunted down all the ones I could, and I think that was one of them.
Oh, so that's your in. Okay, that makes
I
sense.
don't think I even seen it though. I don't think I ever watched it, but I do have it.
I mean, I want to see how many similarities it has to Batman Returns, which came out now 2 years earlier. A colorblind psychiatrist, Bill Kappa, is stalked by an unknown killer after taking over his murdered friend's therapy group. What? All of whom have a connection to a mysterious young woman that Kappa begins having intense sexual encounters with. Not just your standard sexual encounters, but the most intense of all.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, but yeah, you're right because they really leaned into the raw sexual energy and chemistry of Bruce and Selina, and she even comments on him having an erection at one point during the film.
Yes,
Wow.
when they're dancing, right?
Yes, yeah, when they're dancing, and the song "Super Freak" is being covered by the Christmas Party Band.
Yeah.
Of which the original song, the first lyrics in the song are "She's a very kinky girl."
Oh boy. I mean, like, my appreciation of Catwoman as a character has grown a lot over the years. And I feel like she's a very strong character, right? Like, she's the kind of person.
I'd say she's the strongest character of this movie too.
She, in a way, yeah. Like, you know, what I appreciate about her is that she doesn't take any shit from anybody, including Batman. You know, like she doesn't need no man, and that's cool. You know, she's sexy, she's cool, but you know, she gets the job done. And I felt like in this film they made her this really like pathetic person who gets murdered and then comes back with the power of cats to get revenge, and that's where she gets her confidence from. It was just a weird thing for me. I don't know.
I think what we see here is that she's under the delusion that she's immortal, but she fell through several awnings, and her psyche, her trauma manifested itself as this Catwoman character.
There's no way she gets shot
She
several
was
times.
already
She gets
she
electrocuted.
gets shot in non-vital areas. Yeah, the electrocution's a big one. Maybe
Yeah,
yeah, that is a big one. But let's talk about her character while we're there. Selina Kyle, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. She actually had to have the suit vacuum sealed at several times during filming.
really.
So like that's how they got it to be so tight. They would vacuum seal it, and like anytime like she got lightheaded from like her guts being sucked in
Oh
so
my
much by the
God.
suit, or like some air got in and the suit started loosening up, they would have to cut.
Wow.
But yeah. So she plays this meek secretary character, which I'm not even sure if you would say secretary anymore. You might say receptionist, but she is a secretary. She handles all the dealings for some corporate fuck who's destroying the environment named Max Shrek. And so her whole arc is that she has incredibly low self-esteem. We hear through, and I think it's a pretty good job that they just give you all of her insecurities rapid fire through the answering machine. She can't hold down a relationship. Her mom is constantly judging her. We have advertisement affecting her self-image, talking about how pretty women and women who smell a certain way, they're the ones who get men. And so she's constantly being crushed under this pressure. And what I think they do very well with it is that you don't necessarily recognize it when she first comes home. She's just kind of like, oh, what a day at the office. But after she's been murdered, that tends to put a strain on somebody. She comes back and you see that those are the things the whole time that have really been pressing down on her. And she takes that rage and turns it outward on the world. And what was that quote that you gave me that she said, which was like so awesome?
Oh, life's a bitch, and now so am I. I think she says.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
I don't know. It's just so cheesy.
You're not into it.
I wasn't
Man.
feeling it at all. I think what I would have appreciated more was had Bruce Wayne already been interested in her as a person, and then maybe Batman and Catwoman had a thing, but he chooses the real her over the version of her that he's seeing now after her death. But no, like she. Unfortunately, this movie is saying
like what they did in Suicide Squad with Randall Flagg and the Enchantress.
yeah, there you go. Like this movie is basically saying yes, like the hot girl gets the guy. You know what I mean? Like until she becomes like this seductress, she's not able to get a man, and then once she is, she's able to get anybody she wants, including
Much like
Batman.
in Grease as well, you're saying.
Yes,
Word,
exactly. Yes,
putting them into your mouth like Grease. Like she's all that, or you could. She's all cat. That's
she's all
version.
She's all cat. Yep.
We would prefer that she's all bat, but she's not even close to that. She's a cat.
But yeah, there's just like a lot of cheesy one-liners and stuff. What I did like was that she was obviously a very capable secretary. She was intelligent. She actually unveils this entire plot that Max Shrek is doing that's going to really harm the city, and that's why she's murdered. And she kind of plays all the sides, right? I like that she plays all these guys kind of against each other, and she kind of gets the last laugh in the end, which was cool. I did want to see her get her revenge, like I was rooting for her.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily surprised that you're like, oh, this was so fucking campy, because it definitely was, but like, at this point, like, it's just kind of what to expect.
Right.
I guess for kids, when we were kids, it was normal. You go back at this now, and you're like, oh, like, they had to say all this stuff in earnest. Like, it's not dissimilar from the Adam West Batman. It's just the context. You know what I mean? Like, they all really have to commit to ridiculous, over-the-top characters.
Absolutely. I don't know, because I do enjoy the original Batman film. I feel like that one holds up a little better, but. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, Catwoman, she's definitely interesting in this film, and like you said, there's a lot of sexual innuendo, and they really lean hard into that, to the point where like it almost becomes a little uncomfortable sometimes. I was like, oh, okay, it's a bit much, but
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely went in there. And that's that was an interesting point that you made about like how it wasn't Selena's genuine self that was able to win over the eye of billionaire Bruce Wayne. It was the bad girl. I do I'll look it up. I'll throw it in the show notes if it's legit. If not, I'll delete this entire part. She kind of reminds me of when somebody who's living with bipolar may have like a manic episode. They do a lot of shit that they normally wouldn't do, like kind of like that. Like I'm getting strong manic vibes from her. It's
definitely,
like, all right,
definitely.
yeah. I'm gonna now. I was also wondering I was wondering if Bruce ever went to her place because like, do you think she ever cleaned it up after she fucked it up?
No,
Or do
she
you think
definitely
like
didn't. She was
if he
she
would
was
have
going
gone there, he would have
wild.
been like, oh my fucking god, like this is
All right, Bruce Wayne doesn't go to people's places, so let's
that
just
is
be
true.
honest. And I think we'll get into him a little later. Maybe he's the last one we should talk about because, he's Batman. But yeah, I don't think Bruce Wayne goes to people's houses. They come to him.
That's I mean also I would never I would do that less actually. I would just be Bruce Wayne. I would bring a backpack with me so I always have my suit or something. But
Yeah,
it would make more sense to be in the city instead of having other people come to you where your cave is. I don't know.
yeah. He's like, fuck,
Um
I gotta travel so goddamn far every time.
yeah.
Traffic's a
They're going to
bitch.
come in. They're going to be like, "Hey Bruce, why do you have three reflective Batman uh, structures right up on your property that shine directly into your study?" Me? What?
I'm just a big
Why?
Batman fan. I really support him. He's a good guy.
He murdered a circus troupe last week.
Bruce Wayne talking about Batman is like Donald Trump talking about Putin. I just respect him. He's strong, all right?
Batman has a good reason for doing everything he's got to do. All right, we'll have to put that SNL link in the show notes when
There
they're
you
all
go.
talking about how Batman beat them up and everything. And he's like, "Well, I'm sure Batman has a perfectly good reason to keep that crime."
Oh, man.
I want to leave Selena with one thing before we do. I also got a lot of strong Me Too vibes from her relationship with Max.
Okay.
Max wasn't necessarily going into the sexual assault territory, but you can see that he definitely established an ownership and a power dynamic over Selena that was not appropriate. I'm going to be putting these in the show notes, but there were some interesting statistics regarding sexual harassment payouts in 2019, basically saying that they had increased 20% from the previous all-time high of $56.6 million to $68.2 million. So that increase, they credit to the Me Too movement, saying that like claims are being taken more seriously. People are probably coming forward more because they do feel emboldened, and a variety of other factors that you can check in the show notes. But I did think that was pretty interesting, and that I also saw another statistic that 25 to 85% of women feel that they are have been harassed at one point in the workplace.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that's totally what's happening here, and it was at the behest, in my opinion, of Max Schreck. So tell me about him.
Well, real quick, since you brought up the Me Too movement, now that you mentioned, and I mentioned to you earlier today that I was listening to an interview with Rose McGowan, but it kind of, in a way, does remind me of the relationship between Rose McGowan and Harvey Weinstein, and how, Rose McGowan went a little manic herself, but she went on her own vendetta, her own revenge spree, and she got Harvey Weinstein, and basically exposed him for all of the horrible things he did, and started this movement. And I feel like Catwoman kind of does that in this film. Like, she starts to expose who Max is and really gets her revenge in the end. So it's kind of
Wow,
interesting you brought
what
that
a
up.
great and very relevant analogy.
Yeah,
I think Rose McGowan would make a really good Catwoman as well.
she would. She really would.
I think she would. But yeah, so let's talk about. Well, I guess I want to say this movie's Harvey Weinstein, but like it's between Max Schreck, actually every guy in this movie, because this movie is just privilege and power put into practice between these three men, and like they all kind of represent different pieces of shit in real
Right.
life.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, Max Schreck is, like you said, he's this entitled corporate douchebag who's very, very rich, and his goal is to leave as much wealth and power for his son as he can, right? and he's going to do that by creating, I think it was a power plant. But Selina actually figures out that the power plant is not going to provide energy; it's going to actually siphon energy from Gotham City. So he has this like scheme going on how he's going to, keep the money flowing into his son's pockets. And he obviously is not a good person. Doesn't give a shit about the environment. Doesn't give a shit about his city. He murders Selina already. Pushes her out a window because she discovers this. No remorse. He's just, an all-around terrible fucking person, and yet he tries to act like this hero to the people, a lot like Donald Trump, right? Like he gets up there and he gives this really like, rousing speech, and all the people are clapping and cheering for him, and right up till the very end, they all think he's this great man of the city, and he could really give a shit less about them, which is exactly how most billionaires in the world, if not all billionaires in the world, I would imagine, feel about the people in their cities. They don't really care.
Yeah, he has this moment where he says, like, I'm just a poor schmo who got lucky and sue me, wanting to give something back. And, like, everyone's cheering for him, and that totally reminds me of just how, like, a billionaire may donate, like, 1% of their wealth or something, and, like, it may seem like a lot of money, like, oh, they donated $1 million to all these different charities, blah, 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 but, like, with I think after a certain point, you just got to have a cap. Like,
Right.
At a certain point, you don't need any more money. And, like, I have felt this just having a few $1,000s. I'm like, you know what? This is good. So, like, somebody with, like, millions of dollars, like, I've never played it, but I heard that in Animal Crossing, at a certain point, you end up going back and paying other people's rent at the end and, like, paying off their mortgages, and then you get a statue of yourself in the town square. That's how it should work. Like, once you've won capitalism, you can just take your earnings and put it back in, and like you're good. Like, you can retire forever, and it's fine. Obviously that's not how it works. And yeah, they tell Max that, like, he's that they have enough energy to power Gotham for decades or something, or the next century. And if for him it's never enough. Like, he's trying to build a legacy for his son. That's what it's about. It's about preserving the family and preserving the the old money that people like him and Bruce and even Oswald to an extent are so used to coming from and taking advantage of.
People like that, it really blows my mind. They're so obsessed with that, like you said, that family line, that old money kind of thing. It's really it's weird. It's just they're so dead set on maintaining that, and they they'll do anything, including murder and and treason, to do it. It's pretty unbelievable.
Oh yeah, so speaking of which, like, he doesn't even commit a clean murder. He straight up just pushes Selina out the window, and the other guy, he murders, I think, one of his partners, and the Penguin finds out about it. So, like, any problem he comes across, he's that powerful that he can get rid of it. You get. I bet he was friends with Epstein. Like Max Shrek definitely would have been on the Lolita Express with Epstein and Bill Gates and Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump.
And he's played by Christopher Walken, who is a pretty good actor. And, he definitely is playing it pretty serious in this. But, Christopher Walken's a creepy dude to begin with, right? He just comes off that way. And
he just has that air about him.
And him playing Max Shrek is an interesting casting choice. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, he's always fun to listen to. And, of course, I love to impersonate him. But, yeah, he's always fun to listen to and just see act. Because I think him playing it straight here actually just is, it's in line with everybody else chewing the scenery, because
right.
That's what you got to do with this line. We're gonna have some stuff in the show notes about certain parts of the United States, what kind of reactors they're running, like what kind of power plants they're running, and also what kind of waste they're putting out, because that is actually a big part of this. That Max Shrek is destroying the environment, yet doesn't seem to care. However, Bruce Wayne seems to care. What's his deal again? Because he plays a much more active Bruce Wayne in this one than he did in the first one.
I feel like we should say Batman for last. We should talk about Penguin first.
All right, fine. I was just fine.
Let's talk about Penguin, who's So the movie actually opens with him, right? And
it does.
He's born to this rich family. Pee Wee Herman plays his father, and He's
Well, yeah, I think that was Tim Burton's debut. I think it was his directorial debut was Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, that's funny.
yeah, so him
Okay.
and Pee-wee go they go back.
Right. Okay. So yeah, he's born and he's this like, monstrosity, I guess. They play it off like that. The parents are
Yeah,
screaming
he's
when they see
mutated.
him. They keep him locked in a fucking cage, right? I think he eats the family cat at one point. Like it's pretty
I mean,
gruesome.
maybe he's just playing with the cat, but yeah,
Yeah,
then
yeah, I
gets
think he ate the
sucked in
cat.
there.
And then eventually they decide to drown him, right? They take him for a walk in the park
Like you do.
and he winds up just floating for like a 10-minute intro scene, and eventually penguins find him, and he's raised by penguin, and that's how he becomes the penguin. And again, this is an interesting take on the character because in the comics, Penguin, he is on the shorter side like Danny DeVito, but he's not really like this scary looking guy. He's kind of a gangster, right? He's kind of an intelligent gangster. No, good, good.
Yeah, he comes from that old money that that
Yes.
the men in this movie come from, but yeah, he's aware of it. He grew up being able to take advantage of that privilege in the comic books, and that's how he got his way into Gotham's underworld. And he really is one of the first super villains because he already is like a crime boss. Like
Right.
it goes from like the mafia to him to Two-Face to the other villains who are they're super villainy. They're no longer just regular crime.
Exactly. But yeah, this film kind of plays him more of as being this monstrous creature, that will just rip, an animal apart with his teeth. And I think we mentioned earlier, he's pretty scary. It definitely freaked us out as a kid.
Yeah, he's got
As
bile
kids.
coming from his mouth and
Yeah.
stuff, and his eyes are all amazing makeup job and amazing acting job. Like he is very effective. In my
Yeah,
opinion.
I mean,
He's probably the most
honestly,
effective
he
in
was
this
less
movie.
over the top in some ways than some of the other characters for me. Like, I actually didn't mind him as much, but he's very wow. But he's also really creepy. I think I had messaged you, about some of the things he was saying that were just like, oh man, they
Oh
were.
yeah, he has he sees Catwoman and he says, "Just the pussy I've been looking for."
Oh,
He talks about teaching some woman who's working on his campaign his French flipper trick. He says, well, they say you're one of the coolest role models a young person could have, and he takes a button and puts it right on her breast and literally squeezes it, and he says you're one of the hottest young people a role model could have. Yeah, if I were to find a Trump allegory in this, I would say it's more Penguin than Shrek because Penguin's success is orchestrated by Shrek, and then once things start going down, he leaves just like everyone else does. The Trump White House, like when shit starts going wrong, they're like, "All right, I gotta go," and then they write their book. Like
I
that's
can
like,
agree with that because when you think about
yeah,
it, Trump was always kind of an outcast amongst like the old money, right? Like he's this kid.
yeah,
He was this
you're
kid from New
right.
York who was kind of like talk tough and vulgar, and I don't think that he really fit in with the elite society. He had the money,
Yeah,
he had the power, but they didn't like his. Right, they didn't like when he was running for president. A lot of Republicans and conservatives at first didn't like the way he presented himself, the way he talked at debates. And Penguin's kind of like that. He's got that old money, he's got that power, but he's very vulgar and disgusting, and he
yeah, he's different to say the least.
yeah, so I agree that he's very Trump-like. And as soon as he gets that power, he uses it to sexually assault women. So fits right in.
He really does, and also similar to Trump, the thing that gets his campaign going is fear. Like Max Schreck specifically says, like we're gonna get a Reichstag fire going. So the thing that gets his campaign going is fear. Even though he is an outsider, they start using that fear. We didn't have necessarily a Reichstag fire around the Trump campaign. A lot of people think that 9/11 was actually the like our version of the Reichstag fire because that's what got Bush all the clearance he needed to do whatever he wanted in the Middle East, start a bunch of endless wars, invade Iraq, the rest. But there was the fear that Trump based his whole campaign on. It was all predicated on the immigrants are coming, they're rapists, they're murderers. We got to shut it down. We got to do bans on Muslims entering the country. Oh, there was a shooting at a gay club, and Muslims are the problem. And I think people were just so desperate because life wasn't working for them beforehand, and it had to be because of Obama, and it had to be because of the Muslims, and it had to be because of the Mexican immigrants. So Trump must be right. And even though originally they started, a lot of people started saying they weren't going to vote for him, as it got whittled down, a lot of people showed that they were actually not just Republican voters, but straight up Trump supporters. And yes, in this movie, they orchestrate their own crime wave. And, you can discuss what you believe the legitimacy of the election was, given all the, the Russian propaganda interference and social media interference in 2016. You can, right now, you may think that I sound like one of the people who's like, oh, well, the election was stolen from Trump in 2020. So, but whether or not you want to question the legitimacy, the main villains in this movie come to power by stealing an election, orchestrating fear, and capitalizing on that. And actually, I guess Penguin doesn't make it to mayor, but he gets very, very close.
He does.
He's right about there. Until he's exposed for who he really is.
Well, if there's no Batman, he probably would have been, right?
Yeah, I guess it was.
That's the difference between real life and this movie. We don't have Batmans in the world, so we gotta stop them from becoming mayor ourselves.
We are Batman.
Yes,
that's right. Speaking of which, did you want to talk about him next, or?
Yeah, let's talk about the title character, Batman. Batman Returns. I wanted to save him for last because he's obviously the hero. I think we both love Batman. Your favorite comic book character, superhero, is Batman. Mine is Dick Grayson, his adopted son, and Ward and all that. But we both love the Batman mythos and the character. We've read it extensively. Yada yada yada. But I think we both kind of have recently discussed how Batman is problematic in a lot of ways, and this film doesn't really help the case, in my opinion. So, I also feel like we don't really get to spend a lot of time with him. I feel like every time we see Bruce Wayne, we don't get a lot of his personality, and I feel like whenever we're with Batman, he's just punching people in the face.
Yeah, and or murdering folks. He literally murders people in this movie. The Tim Burton Batman's murder people. It was cool to see him actually doing Batman fight stuff. I was like, oh, I didn't know he did that much in this movie. So that was nice. He's using all his gadgets. But yeah, the Batman mythos itself is based on a predatory capitalist, and predatory in the way that he's just ignorant, and the people who are usually on the opposite end of his fist or batarangs end up being people who are disenfranchised, and they turn to crime in Gotham because it is the only choice. There have been a lot of nuances. We're going to review at some point Sean Murphy's White Knight, which does bring this stuff to light, and really discusses the power the elite have over certain citizens of Gotham and police brutality. They really go into that pretty well. But there's also what was the other sorry. But they do make it a point in Batman Begins to talk about how Bruce spent some time among the poor of other countries, and he talks about the first time he stole so that way he could live, so that way he could eat and survive. He lost a lot of assumptions about the differences between right and wrong. So I think as the mythos does evolve, they do try to make it a point of being like, no, he only gets the really bad guys. He's not just beating the shit out of some dude who needs to feed his family. And Gotham the fact that Gotham is such a crime-ridden city, that's the problem in the first place. It wasn't Joe Chill that killed Batman's parents. It was the desperation that was brought on by the disenfranchisement of Gothamites that ended up killing Batman's parents.
Right. And and typically they try to paint his family in a good light, right? They always say Thomas and Martha Wayne were, they love the city, they love the people.
they were actually trying to give back somehow.
Yeah.
They were one of the couple good ones.
But no matter how you paint it, they're removed. They're removed from these people because they will never struggle in the same way. I mean, you could argue even that Superman has more in common with these people than Bruce Wayne does, as being someone who grew up on a farm and has a full-time job. It's like Batman, he's rich, and without his money, I don't know if he would ever have been able to actually become Batman, especially in these films, these Tim Burton movies, and again, like, his solution is to beat people up, but is there ways that he could do more with his money instead of making gadgets and Batmobiles and all this other tech that he uses, that he could save the city? Would he be able to stimulate the economy better by providing better jobs and having more? Arkham Asylum never works, right? Like, it's the craziest place. It's literally they just turn out these supervillains constantly. It's a revolving door where no one ever really gets help. So you think he would have, like, right in his first year of being Batman, been like, all right, this isn't fucking working, so let's, like, let's figure out, is it corrupt, like, is it the doctors, like, what's wrong here, and trying to figure out how to help these people. But that never seems to occur.
Yeah, the amount of change he could affect by just donating his money into the infrastructure of Gotham would make such a big difference. If you actually had Arkham Asylum just became a super prison by its very nature. It should be, and Arkham Asylum is featured in the Batman lore. They don't really make a mention of it in Batman Returns. We're just going off from what we know here. But if you could actually have the people who are in there get some help, and if you were able to maybe, I don't know, pay the guards better or something, or train them better so they weren't always bribed into letting the Joker go.
Yep. It's just like there's got to be a way to stop this. And what's interesting is Batman's a vigilante, right? He's breaking the law. I know the comics and the movies have gone into this multiple times, but he does believe in law and order because he turns these people over to the police.
So weird. Like, you guys aren't getting the job done. Here, lock him up.
Yeah, like, you would almost think he'd have his own secret prison or something, right? Like, he has the money for it. And, like, there's actually a line that I loved in this movie that Catwoman says, and it's towards the end when she's going to try and murder Max, and Batman says, like, let's call the police. And she's like, don't be naive. The law doesn't apply to people like him or us. And it's so good because, again, someone like Max Schreck is rich and he's going to get off. He's going to pay for the best lawyers. He's going to, he's going to do what it takes to get out on the easiest sentencing he can, and never really pay for it because people like him usually don't, right? We see that in real life all the time. And it also applies to both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Bruce Wayne is a rich man who will never, ever not be able to get himself out of, a legal jam. And Batman too, this also applies to vigilantes. They seem to be able to, skirt around the law and not be held accountable. So I thought that was a great line that she delivers. And, it's coming from someone who was or is, someone who's not rich, who has struggled most of her life and is only...
Yeah, she's under the foot of this capital.
Yeah, she's finally taking back a little bit of the power, and she understands this. She knows right away that this the police aren't going to be able to fix this problem.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily just a matter of like, oh, well, the working class are mad at the 1%. Like, she literally has been on the receiving end. Like, when you think of people who... like, work in the Amazon warehouse or whatever, and have miscarried because of all the stress that they're being put under, or had to pee in bottles or anything else. Like Selina is the direct connection. She knows how evil this guy can be. Bruce has only seen him as, oh, well, he's an aggressive businessman. But dude, like, maybe that's part of the Me Too analogy too. Like, fucking believe her. Like, she says, aren't you tired of people like him coming out on top when they should be 6 feet under? Like, that's the guillotine she has. That's the fucking gun. She's like, no, I'm gonna fucking take him down, and I'm going to do it because this is the only sort of justice she will ever see, and she would rather risk getting caught doing that than live another second where this guy doesn't see justice. I mean, at this point also, Cobblepot, when we talk about being held accountable, right? The Penguin has been outed for who he really is.
Yep.
Like, and the people needed no evidence whatsoever. Like, they needed a fraction of the evidence that we currently have, which is so wild. It was just a recording of him saying, sit back and relax. I'll take care of the squealing, wretched pinhead puppets of Gotham. You gotta admit, I played this city like a stinking heart from hell. And they turn on him for that in one of my favorite moments because they're throwing food at him and he goes, "Why is there always someone who brings eggs and tomatoes to a speech?" Oh, one of the best lines in the film.
Wow.
But yeah, I just found it interesting how if we do view him as our Trump analogy, how we know for a fact that he has said and done terrible things and people stand by him. The people in Gotham of all places, all still have some moral fortitude, some sort of conscience to say, that guy's not right. Let's turn on him.
That's how far we've fallen in real life. That the people of Gotham City have more integrity than we do.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting. It is a little idealistic, right? Because you would like to think, even in the 90s, do you think that people were naive enough to believe, hey, we won't stand for corrupt politicians?
Right. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't even think back then they were that naive. But we do want to believe that. In a world where Batman exists, you got to believe that him being Batman is the best course of action. Otherwise, it's not fun.
Agreed. Yeah.
And you also want to believe that the people of Gotham will choose their own heroes. That they will choose Batman over the Penguin. That they will choose, I guess the law over the lawlessness. They didn't really in Batman Returns. They don't really go into the police.
The Dark Knight kind of goes into that stuff a little more.
Yeah. Before becoming straight bootlicker propaganda, the Dark Knight trilogy. It starts out originally as ACAB and then becomes Thin Blue Line. Back to blue. This is our city. We're the law.
That's an interesting point, right? Because I've always really enjoyed Commissioner Gordon's character, and he's a cop, and we've talked about the issues with police on this podcast multiple times. I think we both support defunding the police and even abolishing it. And Commissioner Gordon, though, at the end of the day, he recognizes the corruption in the police department, and he knows that going to this third party, this vigilante, is the best course of action, right? So that shows you a lot just about the police.
Their best cop still has to break the law in order to get things done.
Yep.
And and it is very, Gotham City was originally based on New York City.
Yes.
So. And speaking of New York City, when you want to talk about mayors, Penguin also has big Giuliani energy. He's just leaking from different fucking places and stuff, and being a fucking creep.
Yep.
Laying down on the bed like in Borat.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ. I'm never going to be able to see Rudy Giuliani as Penguin now.
You really shouldn't.
Thanks a lot.
I'm going to see if I had any more fun notes.
I had one. Why the fuck did Batman have to rip his entire mask off to show Selina's face? He tore that shit off. Did you notice that?
Yes. Meanwhile, that's supposed to be bulletproof.
I know. It's like Kevlar, but he fucking rips that thing off. It was hilarious to me that he's just I'm Batman. And then, to me, it's so wild that Max Schreck still didn't comprehend why Bruce Wayne was dressed as Batman, right? He even asked him, he's like, "Why are you dressed like Batman?" And Catwoman's like, "'Cause he is Batman, you moron."
Which is so I love it because even that shows when we talk about rich people like Elon Musk, people think he's a genius just because he's made good investments. But no, the dude was fucking born inheriting an emerald mine and he made good investments.
Yeah, he bought Tesla.
He's not Tony Starking building each Tesla by hand.
No.
Some of these dudes are fucking idiots. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be the hardest worker in the room in order to win at capitalism. And that's what makes it such a broken system. If it was the way people say it is, and it's the harder you work, the more you have, that would be a different story. Right. But I've never known anyone who works harder than poor people. That's just how it goes, And even then, a middle class, working class person to earn an okay retirement and savings and leave something, not a lot, but leave something behind for your kids, you still got to work well into your 60s, and by the time you retire, you can't enjoy your body. Like, that's the best turnout for capitalism. Or like you get popular on YouTube and maybe you become a millionaire at some point. Like, that's it. People love the lottery of it. There's like, oh, there's a 0.001% chance I could be the next Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or whatever.
But the thing is, like, even if you become a millionaire, there's such a disparity between being a millionaire and a billionaire. You know what I mean? Like,
you're right.
Like
how many millions goes into a billion again? Is it 100 millions?
It's
more than that. Is it 1,000 millions?
Something like that. Yeah, I saw a great video that broke down
right?
the difference between being a millionaire and a billionaire. And like, you can become a millionaire. You can actually feasibly do that without totally fucking over like everyone around you. It's possible, but to get to the billionaire status, you have to do some bad shit. Like, it's just,
and you got to hoard all
well. You know what I mean? Like, you maybe not an evil person, but you're gonna do some bad things because it's just, there's no way a human becomes a billionaire through hard work and good choices. It just doesn't happen. So, and again, it's just not ethical. But in this case, again, I do enjoy that Selina is the one who kind of recognizes the truth. She's the one that realizes he's Batman, has to explain it to Max Shrek. Even when they're at the dance, her and Bruce, and she's like, "Why'd you come tonight?" And he's like, "I came to see you." And she's like, "I wish I could say the same." Like, Bruce is just like, "Oh,
Yeah, he's got his head up in the clouds. He came for a fun night. I mean, technically, Bruce Wayne wouldn't have done that normally. But, obviously this is Bruce Wayne on this is Selina, like,
she always gets him.
But even she's the only one who has her fucking eyes on the prize. And even then, like, she also, weirdly enough, is the only one with like a conscience. Like, when the Ice Queen gets kidnapped by the Penguin, like, she is mad at the Penguin because she's like, you didn't say you were gonna kill her. Like, like she kind of hates women for being victims, but also understands that she was a victim not too long ago, so kind of feels for them in the same way. And it is such an interesting struggle that we do see with her character. And she plays the Penguin by making him think that she's into him, which it isn't even that hard. As we see, like, all she has to do is breathe in his direction. He's like, oh my God, you sent out all the signals. Like, he is misogyny incarnate, like, in this role. And, he's the guy who like, oh, you don't want to go out with me? You were fat anyway, you fucking bitch. Like, he tries to kill her as soon as she refuses to marry him after knowing him for 7 hours. But so she is able to pit them all against each other. She's the one who has to fucking take care of Max Shrek at the end of it all. Like, man, I think she's the best character in this movie. I
agree with you. Like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of every aspect of her portrayal, but I do think, especially talking it out through this podcast, I feel like she is probably the most fully realized person in the film, and definitely the most interesting character.
Yeah, like, when I say she's like better than other characters in other Batman films, not necessarily, but it's kind of slim pickings in this one. So we have Bruce Wayne is so uninteresting that, I mean,
he really is though,
his character, but I just remember at the beginning him sitting down and waiting for the bat signal. Like, he's doing nothing until the bat signal comes into his study, which is also perfect Bruce Wayne in its own way too.
Yeah, in a way,
Batman is all he has, but also he would be doing like
detective work or training
doing science.
Or something, or just like patrolling. But he's like, fuck it, I'll stay in until I just wait. It's like,
Also, wait for the signal.
Also, the end of this movie, they fucking kill everybody, right? Everyone but Batman dies.
Oh yeah, those are the days when it was just about killing the bad guy. There was no such thing as possibly returning.
I was like, wow, they just murdered everyone.
Batman.
Except, there's that little tease that Catwoman's alive, and he takes the cat with him, which I thought was cute.
Which I really liked. And that was, of course, you would love that part when he takes the cat. And it was a stupid little dropped line, but it's one of my favorites just because of the place this movie holds in my heart. And, when he says, Merry Christmas, Alfred, and goodwill toward men.
Yeah.
And then he looks at the cat and he goes, and women too.
Yeah,
Like,
I actually like that too. I liked it too.
What, and it's kind of like it's literally the bare minimum of recognition that women should get for their struggle. But just knowing, like, that's all he's like, I napalmed Catwoman. I fucking threw her off of a thing. She ended up killing herself to kill her boss. He's like, you know what? She deserves this one.
I just imagine him being like, they're driving for like 10 minutes and he's like, Alfred, pull over. And he just lets the cat out in some random fucking neighborhood where it has no idea where it lives. he just drives away and he thinks he did something good. And it's like, what the fuck? He just displaced that cat, man. There's no way he kept the cat. Let's just be honest.
I'll go Michael Caine, Alfred. Oh, Master Wayne, it could have had a family waiting for it back home.
Well, according to Batman Returns, he calls him Mr. Wayne, which was just weird to me.
Yeah, honestly, which is worse? Like,
yeah, I know. I mean, there's problems with Master, but it's just so traditional
pretty weird,
for the character.
But Mr. is even like, oh, please, Mr. Wayne was my father. He's like, yeah, and I don't want to learn your fucking names. Boom. Bad boy Alfred strikes again.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so I'm so glad we got to review this. It is, about crooked capitalists being the bad guys, a regular capitalist who, by default is a villain, being a hero. They did such ridiculous stuff with the gadgets and everything in this movie. I'm not gonna go into it, but I did think it was hilarious how they had the poodle that somehow caught Batman's remote control batarang, and they were able to. How they opened up the Batmobile, had all of its guts lying out and everything, and then in the end of the plot, it was just this little ball on the bottom of his car. That's all it was. And all you had to do was punch through the floor of the car and fucking take it off all the work they did.
Did they shoot this in New York City? Like, was that supposed to be like the tree in the city?
No way. I guess it was supposed to be. I think a lot of it was soundstaged. Like, because there was such a sterile environment. You had 17 people on screen max.
I know the Nolan trilogy, they did film like in actual cities and stuff, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah,
but I guess
they did. Yeah, a lot of.
I saw the Christmas tree and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, well, definitely reminiscent, but yeah. So that's our review of Batman Returns. Nice, succinct, feels good.
Yeah, it was fun. I've been meaning to rewatch it for years, so I'm glad I finally had an excuse.
Yes, and next week, Ty, what are we going to be reviewing?
We're going to be reviewing A Christmas Carol, as our next episode will be launching on Christmas Day.
Woo! All right. So, A Christmas Carol, you said this is the Disney version, not a Muppet Christmas Carol.
No, I do love A Muppet Christmas Carol. It's my favorite Christmas movie, but I think we're going to be talking about the one that's very true to the book, and that is Disney's A Christmas Carol.
Not Scrooged, starring Bill Murray?
No, not Scrooge with Bill Murray. Maybe we'll do that next year for Christmas.
Fine. Yeah, that's.
And then we will hopefully be doing the Grinch afterwards. I know we promised that last week, but I thought A Christmas Carol would be quite the Christmas Day episode. So,
especially this Christmas, where we're realizing all of the pitfalls of capitalism
on
a grand scale.
Yeah, we're actually changing the podcast into "Fuck Capitalism" next month. So.
We got to do it. We got to get edgy. And I'm going to call myself Comrade Frankenstein's Monster.
Nice.
I was riding my unicycle the other day, and I thought, man, these fucking lib fucks.
Turns out he's actually listening.
But yeah. Oh yeah, we got blocked for liking his. We got added to a list of fake lefties on Twitter. Everybody.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. But I didn't really. I'm really bad at Twitter because I'm old as fuck. Apparently,
like, this is the end of the podcast.
Well, I didn't know what was going on. I think you and I personally were added to some list saying that we were fake socialists, and I thought leftists were coming for us, and I was like, what the fuck? What's happening? I gotta watch my back from everybody now.
No, just some poser, just an actual fake.
Just some fucking loser who had nothing better to do. So yeah, that was fun.
But in the meantime, in between time, folks, make sure that regardless of where you're listening to us on, and you can listen to us at a lot of different places, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio app, make sure that you give us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps us out in the algorithm. You can watch and listen to us on YouTube. Support us on our Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can help support the podcast and be privy to a lot of awesome exclusive content. Currently, I am reading an audio Booch, and it is How to Survive Anything, Anywhere. You can find us on Twitter at PolitiPopPod, Instagram at PolitiPop, PolitiPopPodcast. Email us at politipopcast@gmail.com. Find our show notes and sources at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. And special thanks to all of you and to Antonia Chava for logo design for the Politipop Podcast. I have been Mike Booch.
I have been Ty.
Remember, no matter what you're watching, no matter what you're reading, listening to, no matter what city you're defending, or oh yeah, there was a whole plot to kill children in this movie that we totally.
God, yeah, that's true.
And he was going to kill them in pollution. All right, quick plot. Want to kill the next generation using pollution and climate change. Boom, it was in there.
Wow.
All right. But regardless of what evil plots you're hatching on the first Sons of Gotham, never stop thinking, never stop learning, and always remember to read between the lines.
And scene.
I feel so good when you do it.